Hello and welcome. We're making an Applescript video tonight. We'll be looking at using Applescripts to generate cue templates for often repeated actions. In this video, we'll be looking at making slides with fade-ins and fade-outs, as well as making videos with fade-ins and fade-outs, and a couple different approaches we might take. So, as normally, we'll be starting with some of my old scripts and updating them to make nicer, cleaner code. So to begin with, let's just go ahead and jump into QLab and check out how these two scripts work. So the first one's called Make Slide. These are both scripts that I use for Fringe, where I do a lot of shows, one-person shows with a lot of slides and a couple cues intermixed in between, um, but that are not straight slideshows. I do have an entirely separate script for making slideshows for like if you're doing pre-show posters and whatnot up on the screen before a show starts or whatnot. So this is for in your main cue stack when you've got a slide with a fade in and a fade out, and not necessarily followed by another slide. And so our first option, we run Control S, and what it does is it makes us a new video cue with a fade that's targeted to it and a fade out that's targeted to it. And like we saw in the fade in and fade out videos, what it does is it takes that video cue and it makes its opacity 0, and then it makes that fade in, it gives us a 100% opacity, and for the fade out, it gives us a 0% opacity. Go ahead and delete these three. This make new video, it's just a little bit fancier. This one was purpose built for a show that I knew was going to have a awful lot of slides. It's only called video to distinguish it from the other slide one, but it's mostly the same functionality. It's just got a little bit more going on. Let's go ahead and run it, and I'll show you. I'll talk a little bit about why it's different. So the first thing that pops up is we get a little pop-up that says which surface. We're going to say surface 1. It says which cue. We're going to say Q5. We hit enter. We get a couple cues. First thing you see, we get a group cue that has our projection cue and our fade in. And as per normal, we have the projection is zeroed out on opacity with the fade in taking us up to 100. And then we have a fade out cue with the stop target when done. I forgot to mention that that works the same way in the create slide script. And then it also gives us some cue numbers here. I really like this for the cues that are not called. This is pretty nice. I mentioned in another video, sometimes I like to use really descriptive cue numbers like this. However, I found out on this show that doing it like this was a little too overdone. Having the pre-populating the queue number for the actual queue called queue wasn't the best bet, and um, this style with having the group auto generated for each video queue works really well when you're going from single slide to single slide. I found that it got pretty cumbersome once we started layering projections on top of each other in one go. So definitely think about that when you decide for yourself which one of these routes to take. I'm going to show you how to do both. So with that said, let's jump into the code. So here we've got that base version of that make new slides. We see it's pretty simple. It makes a video queue, it sets some properties, it makes a fade queue, it sets some properties and targets that fade queue to the video, and then it makes a fade out. And then at the end, it does a little loop and it makes all of their color purple and it clears their queue number. This isn't entirely necessary. This is more for my personal style. You don't need to. And then the last thing it does is it moves the playback position back to the video queue, since that's the one you're probably going to want to edit first. Um, we notice though we've got these two make fades blocks, and if you've seen my previous videos, you know we don't like repeating ourselves like this. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to copy these and we're going to make a function. So we'll copy these and we'll bring them down here and we'll add some lines and say on make fade. And this is going to take a couple arguments. The first argument it's going to take is fade type. And we'll add that so that we can tell Applescript whether we're making a fade in or a fade out. and then it's also going to take a target Q, so that Applescript knows where to assign that property. And then we're going to do end, and then the name of the function, and then we'll come back here and add those things that we copied. And so you'll remember when we make functions that since we're using actual QLab properties, we're not using properties of Applescript in general, we're using actual QLab properties, we need to add a tell block. So we'll say, actually, I'm going to go back up to the top. I'm just going to copy this line and bring it down for me and paste it in, and then I'm going to add an endTell, and then we'll add some lines in here. And this is where we'll actually paste that stuff that I copied. Oh, I totally did that wrong. Excuse me. I already pasted it in. So let's yank that, and then we'll paste that there. And then we'll go down to the bottom. Oh, and the cat wants out. Bye, cat. So we'll go down to the bottom, and then we will add the endTell. Excuse me. Sorry about that, team. I heard the cat behind me and got a little distracted. So now what we want to do is we want to look at these two blocks, and we want to see what are the things that are the same. Well, first off, make type is in both, so we're going to go ahead and get rid of that. Set FadeIn, set FadeOut to last item. That's the same. So we're going to go ahead and get that. And because I like good variable names, we're going to change this to FadeQ. Set do opacity is the same in both of them. So again, we're going to change this to FadeQ, and then we'll go down to the lower one, and we'll go ahead and delete that. We set the do opacity to true in both of them, so we're going to delete that. Set opacity to 0, we only do that in FadeOuts, just like set opacity to 100, we only do in FadeIns. However, set QTarget, we do that in both. So we're gonna keep this one. We're gonna move this line up. Oh, that's not what I meant to do. We're gonna move this line up, and then we're gonna change this variable. Not that variable. Excuse me. We're gonna change this variable to FadeQ. What? Sorry. I'm going to change this variable to FadeQ. Set the Q target of FadeQ to new Q. There we go. So after that, we want to start an if block. And what we're going to do is we're going to say if fade type is in, then, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Then, and we'll go down. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that either. We'll tab this over. And that's the only thing we need to do for fade ins. I'm sorry, let me just check my notes real quick. I think that's right. Yes, that's the only thing we need to do for fade ins. So then we'll do an else block here that says else, and then we'll just tab these over. That's not what I'm. There we go. Just tab these over. Yes. And so now we're mostly done, except that. No, I lied. Now we're done with that. Let me just double check that real quick. Oh, over here where it says new queue, we need to change this one to target queue. And then down here at the bottom, I missed a fade queue. Let me change that. Change that to fade queue. And I missed a fade queue here. Well, wow, I missed a lot, guys. I'm sorry. Okay, now let me check my notes one more time. So we got set queue, fade queue 2. Okay, So something we've seen in some of the other videos is this set properties line. I typically like to do this. It's a little bit cleaner. Sorry, let me put a blank line in here. So instead of doing these two, set opacity, set Q target, we're going to do set properties of fade Q 2, and then we just open a list. And we're going to say do opacity true, comma Q target target Q. And then we'll go down and we'll just delete these two lines. I like this personally. It's totally a personal choice. I think this looks a little bit cleaner. So okay, so this looks like our fade queue. You know what? I'm just gonna go up here and I'm gonna tab this whole thing in one. So let me go down 9 and then tab that once over. Okay, so this is our new function. This will make our new fades depending on if we give it an in or out, it will do different things. So let's go up here and let's modify up here so that it will do that. Oh, you know what? Let's go ahead and let's add just to show how you would do it. Let's add the Q color is purple. That's the string purple. And then we'll add Q number, and we'll strip it. We'll make no Q number. And then if there were any other properties that you wanted to set, you could add them into this list here in the same manner. So moving up into the main body, we've now gotten rid of this block, and this block. So let's go ahead and just highlight and delete all of this. So we can delete all of that. And up here is where it says set my color purple. We're going to get rid of that, and we're going to change that instead to set Q color of new Q to purple. Except that once again, we've got several properties being set for one Q. So we're going to come back up here, we're going to make a new line, and then we're going to set properties of new Q2, and we're going to open a list, and we're going to say opacity. So you don't need to do a do opacity on video cues, you just need to do that on fades. So opacity we're going to set to 0, continue mode we're going to set to auto continue, and then we will set the Q color to the string purple. Oh, not sorry, to the string purple. And then now that we do that, we can get rid of these three lines. And that I feel like that's just cleaner. So now what we need to do is we need to add two calls to make fade to add the fade in and fade out. So the first thing we'll do is we'll add a line in here, we'll tab in, and we'll say, remember we call our user-defined functions with my. So we'll say my make fade, and we need to give it the type of in, and then we will say that it is it's going to be targeting new queue. And then we'll do this again. We'll say my make fade. We're going to give it the type of out. Now we don't explicitly have to do this. Technically, we can do anything in there that's not the string in, and it will make an out queue. But for me as the programmer, I like to write this so that I know what I'm doing. It's explicit to me. It's easy to read. There's a rule in programming that you will read your code more than you'll spend more time reading your code than you'll spend running it. So it's really worthwhile to take the extra keystrokes and really write clearly defined names. So now that we've saved this, I'm going to compile this. We got an error found in but found tell. Oh, I forgot to do an end if down here, excuse me. So we'll come back here and do end if. Let's try and compile that one more time. Script compiled successfully. So let's go ahead and run this from the interpreter. Fade out is not defined. Fade out is not. Where do we have a fade out? Oh, right here. I just missed all the fade cues. I missed all the times where I needed to change that to fade cue. Fade cue. Fortunately, that was pretty deep in the code, so I don't think I could have missed many more. Okay, let's try and run this one more time. It looks like we ran. Let's go over to QLab. Oh, and I forgot to delete all those things. So let's delete all of these just so it's clear. And we'll come back over. We'll run it one more time, and we'll come back to QLab. And we see we've got 3 new cues. And our video is set to 0 opacity. Our fade in has 100%, and our fade out has 0%. That works beautifully. If you just make a bunch of slides and that's all you need, you're all set and done. However, we're gonna take this a step further. So let me go over to my other notes.